We found a spring on our property. Look at this mess. It's a big trench.
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to walk you through how we're solving a current problem that we're having on our property, which is that we want to increase the water flow into our well. The well that we have on this property is what's called a shallow well. So that means that it doesn't go quite as deep as a traditional deep well would go. One day we're definitely going to add a deep drilled well, but that's pretty expensive. So that's a little ways down the road. So in the meantime, we want to figure out how we could get more water into our shallow well. We have a lot of activities at our property that require a decent amount of water, such as our hot tub and our reef tank. So it's important to us that we have enough water to do all these various things. We know that there is a spring down the hill from our house. The last people who lived here would actually pump water uphill from the spring into the well. However, that water pump is super old and broken, so we figured if there's a spring down there, there is a spring up here too. So that led us down the rabbit hole of looking into how to develop a natural spring and get it so that we could have that spring flow water directly into our well.
We ended up looking at the road to see where water was coming out, and then decided just to follow up the path of the mountain that leads to behind our house, and found an area we could actually get the tractor in. Started digging, and we got lucky on the first try, and about 2.5, 3 feet down, we found some water trickling out. So I decided to go jump out of the tractor and trace where the water was coming. And just after unblocking a few small rocks, water started rushing out. It hasn't rained for a couple of weeks now, so this is our spring right on our property here. So when we bought the property, a lot of these rocks were in a big pile over there, and they're perfect for drainage. So once I found the spring's location, I dug a big hole that was about 4 feet deep in the center, and then we just started filling it with these rocks. I was then extra careful to find exactly where the water was coming out until we found it coming out between a couple of larger rocks right under where I am right now. We put a bunch of these big stones right at that entrance, so when we put dirt back on it, it won't fill in. And then we had these pebbles as well that we filled in the center to make kind of a flat base at the bottom. This apparently was a composter at one point. It's just like this black plastic thing that has an open bottom, and this top. This was also left here. So like the top can come off. It's this like nice black plastic. It has these slits in it. So I figured it would be perfect for this. So we placed this on top of that bed of stone, the flat level bed of stone, and left it for a few days. When we came back, this entire bowl here was full of water. After we confirmed that water was actually actively flowing into this, we decided to take the tractor and start building or digging a trench that led down to where our well is. We have a pretty substantial filtration system that we use for our aquarium anyway, so we can actually filter this water really well for drinking. So I'm not too worried about the fact that it isn't deep well water. So while digging the trench, we found a whole bunch of these like big rocks. That was the hardest part about this trench. There are actually a couple under here that we just couldn't move. So I ended up digging around them, hand digging with the pickaxe to try to get a slot between them deep enough for the tubing. After we got to about this point, the rest of the trench ended up being really easy to dig. We get our internet through Starlink and decided that while we were at it, we would just divert the trench slightly, so that way we could run it under where the Starlink cable was previously hung. We have a bunch of conduit and decided to put the Starlink cable within the conduit underneath the ground, kind of on top of where the water line now is. After we dug the trench, and it was basically all the way down to where the well is, I decided to break the dam that I had built up right up at the spring head. And we did that before getting the tubing, just to make sure the slope of the bottom of the trench actually was going downhill. It's really hard since we're on such a hilly area to tell, because from one side it looked like it was a very steep slope, and then from the other side it looked like it was going uphill. So I just broke the dam, we let the water release, and we were really happy when the water got all the way down to right about here before the volume of the water was just too low to keep going. So at that point, we went to the store and got this stuff called ISP. It's like black tubing that you can bury under the ground. And we laid it along this entire trench and connected it, put the end under the water in the actual spring head. And then we began the kind of scary process of digging right next to our well to try to find the hole that we could stick the pipe into in the top portion of our well.
So as of right now, we have filled in the top part of the trench that we were just showing you guys, and we've also filled in where our upper driveway is, because we need to be able to drive our tractor back and forth there. So this is the section of the trench that we haven't filled in yet. So here we can see the two lines that we have running. One of them is for the spring water to come. And then the second one is for the Starlink cable that we were just telling you about that we have buried, which is awesome because now that cable is just totally out of the way and we don't have to worry about hitting it or damaging it. So the hardest part of this project, in my opinion, was when we got the black tubing and we had to unravel it and make it fit in the trench. Because the tubing has been rolled up for its whole time of existence, it does not want to become a straight line. And because we bought 200 feet of it, it was really challenging to unroll it and try to get it in a straight line, especially without developing kinks in it, which almost seems inevitable. And once you have a kink in it, it's essentially impossible to get it unkinked. So we did have a small section that we developed a couple kinks in, and what we had to do was just cut it and splice it with a new section of tubing. But once we did that, we ended up having everything work out pretty well. And when we saw the spring water trickling into our well for the first time, we were overjoyed.
So since this spring is underground water, we want to keep it that way. There is a chance that when it rains, water might fill in this area, especially if it rains really hard. So we're going to actually take this plastic here. I've flattened an area above where the spring head is, and I'm going to take this plastic and lay it on top of the ground. We'll then bury this so that when it does rain, the rainwater hopefully will stay on top of this and not mix too much with our spring water. So if you look back at the channel, you'll see that we have built quite a few ponds in the past. So this is actually pretty similar to that. Right now we're basically doing what we would do when we would make an artificial stream or river within the pond. So basically you have an underlayment, you lay down a waterproof layer, and then you bury that in something that ideally won't just completely wash away. So that's kind of the plan here. I think I'm going to have to get the tractor and grade the lower side of this a little bit better, because as of right now, the water would just pool here. I don't want to make a little mini pond. So we'll see if we can avoid that. I should probably mention that this plastic is just like generic paint drop cloth, but I just found like the thickest one that we could. Since I knew we'd be throwing rocks on it, it might rip, but it probably won't as long as we're relatively careful.
This project is just one of the many reasons why we love having our tractor so much, because doing this whole project without our tractor would have been virtually impossible. We are gonna get to work filling in the rest of this trench. Thank you guys for coming along while we showed you how we developed the natural spring on our property, and we'll see you in the next video.